Hello everybody, I'm here in our greenhouse. I'm just going to make a quick video for you on the sensors in the greenhouse. Here we go. So this is what's called an aspirated box. It's just a fancy word for saying it's a temperature and humidity sensor. It's made by Priva. If we open it up here, we go ahead and open it up. Let's move these poinsettias out of the way so we don't wreck them. What you'll notice is there's a temperature sensor up here, and then there's looks like a shoelace coming out of a box, and a fan right there. So what's going on here is greenhouse air is being brought into the box. And blown over the two sensors. Okay, so what we're getting here is ambient greenhouse temperature, which is the air temperature of the greenhouse, and we're getting evaporative cooling temperature because this shoelace is actually a wick. Okay, so now I took the shoelace off. You see there's another temperature sensor below the one I showed you before. Okay, so this box here should be filled with water. Doing this with one hand is complicated. It's all good. So you can see here, this is a reservoir for water. This wick is always kept wet. So what's actually going on is that this temperature sensor, which is the same as this, but this one's measuring the evaporative cooling of the greenhouse. The difference between these two temperatures will tell us what the humidity is. So right there we have temperature, and the difference between the dry temperature and the wet bulb temperature gives us humidity. Okay, so this box here is basically a temperature and humidity sensor. One more thing about this guy, it's got an arm with another temperature sensor. So this temperature sensor, which keeps on coming in and out of focus, is the plant leaf temperature, and that is important to the greenhouse control system because it gives us VPD, which is vapor pressure deficit. If we look behind the sensor, you can see a whole bunch of wires. Okay, so put that down gently. You see here, this is the bottom sensor, which was the wet bulb temperature sensor, and up here is the dry bulb temperature sensor. They both have two wires coming off of them. Those wires go all through the sensor, and they measure voltage going across the two wires. That voltage is calibrated for temperature. All of these wires go back to our computer, which is in the breezeway where you guys enter the greenhouse. So this right here is the computer for the greenhouse. This is the environmental computer controls. So if I bring this phone up a little closer, you can probably hear some clicking, some ticking. These are what are called Priva Maximizer units. They're pretty old, but they work nonetheless. Anyway, so you can see here's the motherboard. That's what's making all the decisions. And if I take this off, I can do that. Mind that. There's a closer look at it. So you see wires along the bottom are going to relay switches, and wires along the side here are actually for sensors coming into the greenhouse. Okay, so those relay switches are right here, and those relay switches actually send signals to the vent motors or the the heating valves, etc. So that sensor is responsible for sending information to the computer controls, and the computer control then will make a decision based on our input settings, which is basically, well, usually the grower will set those settings, and then the computer will make adjustments accordingly. So the computer sends low voltage signals to relay switches. Those relay switches will then send messages to our actuators. So that is a vent motor, and if the greenhouse gets too warm, based on that little aspirated box there, right, the aspirated sensor box, will tell the greenhouse, will tell the computer controls that the greenhouse is too warm, and the vents will then open based on our settings. Okay, that is just a brief example as I walk around showing the remainder of our point setters here mid-December.